Hey, fellow humans. Today we are talking about one of the big questions behind some of the biggest questions of our times. In light of all the clamor for safe AI, all the discussions and all the forums and all the labs devoted to finding the answer to how do we build safe AI systems, how do we build a safe AGI, anyone who's not immersed in the industry must ask that with all the risks which come with it, and with the fact that most people who are at the cutting edge have a standard probability of 0% to 30%, and the average being somewhere in the ballpark of 20% for these AI systems to wipe us out, why would the brightest minds of our times be devoted to this, just as the brightest minds of America in 1945, 1944 were devoted to the Manhattan Project? I'm not drawing any parallelism here. This is exactly the opposite about an act of creation, the greatest creation that can be. Well, that was all about destruction or whatever destruction. Don't want to get into that debate right now. But the question arises, right? Why are we devoting so much time, so much energy, so much of our brain power, so many resources towards creating this machine super intelligence, which has a significant p-value of wiping us all out? During the course of the next 20 minutes, I hope to show that the domains this answer spans will ensure that the path that we are on of creating AGI is going to be as inevitable as the path that got us towards inventing religion when we had to get to the next stage of our evolution to go from tribes to groups, larger groups, and agricultural civilizations. I'll start off with one of the biggest reasons why people are working at the cutting edge have gotten into this, which is the intellectual curiosity. Being able to solve the mysteries of the universe is one of the most potent drives for a lot of people who are at the cutting edge. Being able to solve the mysteries of dark energy, dark matter, how black holes come to be, how they cease to be, how what's behind the singularity, how did we come to be, how did the universe come to be, how are we going to go off into the sunset, metaphorically speaking. Um, the nature of intelligence, the questions surrounding the universe, consciousness, all these big questions that we have no hope of answering simply because uh, of our biological limitations, right? We've got puny brains, we've got architectural limitations. There's nothing we can do beyond a certain point to expand our cognitive capabilities. We have to rely on if we want to answer these questions. We are probably hitting very close to the limits of what we could accomplish with our puny brains, and soon enough, we'll have to rely on something which is augmented or artificial in nature to help us answer these questions. Another big question, and this is more to do with our species in particular, rather than any generic species, that intelligent species that you might take, is a question of consciousness, right? What exactly is this lived experience that we inhabit all the time? Unless you transcend it, some people, only a few choice people have been able to transcend it, and I do not want to speak on the behalf of those people because you cannot even use the language that me and you use to describe an out of consciousness experience. Well, you're still the observer, but you're not, right? It gets into a real weird territory, just as talking about quantum mechanics can get into real weird territory. So the questions around consciousness, how does it come to be? Why do we have these subjective experiences? How does consciousness arise simply because of the transfer of information? And how does our brain support consciousness? Where does consciousness reside? All the questions to do with um, consciousness, figuring it out, modeling it, understanding it, and hopefully embodying it in our AI systems to better align them, right? Because one of the key missing pieces which might be necessary to get to safe AGI might be consciousness. I've not heard too many people talk about that as a possible solution, but I think that's got to be in our toolkit, in our possible approach toolkits. It would also having these really supremely intelligent systems. When I say supremely, I mean a billion times smarter than all humans combined. Having these systems would also allow us to formulate proofs or disprove things about the world that we live in. For example, the simulation hypothesis. which I'm not a big fan of. I can get it. I can get why people assign the p-values they do, but some people seem to live in a certainty, on an almost certainty that we are in a simulation. We are living in a simulation. I get the maths argument. I'm not a big fan of it. I just haven't found a good argument against it. So it's just more of an emotional argument. It's just not really a good place to be in. It's just opposing something. But yeah, this is and having these super smart systems that could allow us to disprove or prove for once and for all whether we are in a simulation and all sorts of other things. Mathematical proofs, again, that's a big one, right? We are very curious about, we're very driven to be certain about the world that we live in, and mathematical proofs are the body on which we build that certainty. So on which top of which we build physics, which gives us that certainty. There have been people who devoted their entire lives towards getting to that certainty for one niche domain. Take Fermat's theorem. Most people used to believe that it would be possible downright, and even who's going to attempt it, they're just wasting their time. And yet this English chap, he thought that he devoted 20 years of his life, and at last finds a solution, proves that, I think he proves it here. Yeah, I'm a bit hazy about the details, but the point is that humans have this need, a certain group of humans have this deep desire to be certain about things and to be able to dispel doubts about the nature of the universe, about the world that we live in. And these AI systems also allow us to, would help us to get to that certainty. That's again a big reason for why we want that in our midst. Another one is that these are more philosophical questions that we grapple with: the meaning of life, the purpose of life, how to live a good life, how to live a good life with who we are, with our blind spots, with the things that is in our personal context, how to add value to the world that we live in the society that we live in. All these questions, which are the big questions that surround us, that we grapple with on a day-to-day basis, or for most people on a day-to-day basis, but questions that they might nevertheless grapple with every now and then. These are questions that, sure, we can get to a version, but if there's an optimal version, if there's an answer to these questions, or if there's a way to answer these questions and get to the answers, it would be a big help to have something which can simulate scenarios and can simulate information at far, far greater speed than we can. That can help us arrive at these answers far sooner than we could with our limited resources. A big one that most people don't think about, and most people who work on these systems haven't consciously thought about, is protection. We live in a cold and hostile universe. With the tiny sliver, look behind me, we've got all these beautiful trees, it's drizzling a bit, the birds are chirping, everything seems almost like this current moment in time behind me, and just, you could be watching this from a beach or from a mountain, and you would be observing things around you, and you would be like, the world is beautiful. And it is, it's just a tiny sliver. In the grand scheme of things, the tiny sliver does not even in our own solar system, that sliver is a tiny point of all the available land, all the available space, and all of that space is hostile, it's cold, it would not be conducive to life, it would not be conducive to all the things that we care about. And the universe is full of hostility. That is not even meant to talk about alien species that might be hostile. If there are hostile alien species, and they're likely hostile alien species, and if they are more intelligent than us, and there is likely some intelligent species that are a million times more intelligent than us, which have technology that's thousand times better than anything that you can imagine. These aliens might reach us, these species might reach us, so they might send probes our way. And the only defense we would have in front of these kinds of threats would be an AI army of our own. And we've got other things in the universe that we are just weak and puny, powerless against: solar flares, quasar blasts, viruses, global pandemics, engineered pandemics, nuclear annihilation. Again, these are threats that we simply cannot protect ourselves against without having something that is far more intelligent, far more superior than us, in its miscalculus and its ability to deliver protections for us. And simply for that reason alone, if you know clear the reasons, I think it's a compelling argument to be made for why we need these AI systems, despite the risk that they bring about. A big one that drives a lot of rhetoric in culture is abundance, is automating labor, it's streamlining productivity, it's maximizing productivity, it's maximizing resource consumption and resource use and converting those resources to actual goods and services and reducing the cost of these goods and services to the bare minimum, freeing humans to do creative, fulfilling, and enriching things in life. All the good stuff that everyone wants good stuff, all the comforts, all the feature conveniences that people care about, all the pleasure, all the happiness, all the joy that people want, a lot of that comes from the lived experience. A lot of that comes from having these activities, having these like things in our midst that we can access and tap into to be able to access those states that we want to inhabit. Um, but we do live on a finite planet. We've got a limited number of resources. We will need to go to the asteroid belt. Some asteroids in the belt contain more minerals than can be found on the entire planet. That would be a game changer for our ability to provide the best of the best for everyone, or not the best of the best, but to provide a really compelling life, a really exciting life for almost everyone on the planet. Well, everyone on the planet for that matter. Yeah, it would make software virtually free. It would make energy virtually dirt cheap. It would make physical goods cheap as a pair of pens. It would allow us to have everything that we need, and people are driven by the hunger for more. People are driven by the hunger for greed. Humans are. That's just a fact. And the experiment that we've been on, the trajectory that we've been on for the last 10,000 years, has been towards gathering more resources, towards having more and more things in our midst. And that very drive is going to, again, make this almost inevitable that we keep on going down this path. Another big one that we want to solve for is health, death. More than health, death, right? Because health is just a manifestation of. If we can solve death, if we can actually get to immortality, which has been a pipe dream for the earliest humans, from the earliest times that you can, from the earliest times that we've got some literature, the earliest times that we've got conversations, immortality has been one of the things that humans want the most. We're conscious, we are aware of the fact that we are going to be limited in span, in time, and we are going to leave behind things that we don't want to leave behind, people that we love, activities that we love, experiences and states of mind that we love. We don't want to leave that behind. We've got a strong bias towards inhabiting those states and being in the midst of those moments and experiences. And if there's something that we can do to prevent our cessation, then I think we'll do that and we will do that. And it's not just health and death, it's solving for all suffering like boredom, depression, anxiety, autism, cognitive, mental, emotional disorders, all the things that lead to what we call pain, what we call even discomfort, being able to remove all of those facets of our existence, such that life becomes a veritable joy in every single moment, peak maximum, peak happiness at all times. That might sound dystopian if it's forced upon, but this would raise some questions around how do we live in a world in which there's no suffering, right? Do we create our own suffering? Again, that's a different discussion, but these are things that we'll probably be trending towards and questions that we'll probably have to answer soon enough. We'll have personalized medicine, we'll have eradicate all diseases with AI. We will have mental and emotional well-being, we'll have AI-powered therapy, we'll have our own AI therapists who are far, far, far better than any human could, with all the biases, with all the things which afflict us. These AIs wouldn't have any prejudices, they wouldn't have any judgment, which, and they would be able to ask the pointed questions for you to help you to get to the root cause, to help you solve the problem, which a lot of therapists are really bad at. Therapists have a bad reputation, and that's not the reason. They're not good at what they do. It's fine. We will create new forms of entertainment, new forms of social connection. We'll be able to create new forms of joy-generating activities, pleasure-generating activities. To be able to add more happiness into our lives. Another point, which again comes from our intellectual curiosities, being able to interact with something which is intelligent, but which is qualitatively different from our intelligence, which has a different substrate, which has different architecture, cognitive architecture. Being able to interact with something of that sort, that's one of the big drivers for why I got into this. The kinds of interactions, the kinds of conversations, the kind of insights that we could have dealing with other kinds of intelligence. I think that would be really compelling to observe. It would also allow us to gain a deeper insight into things like creativity, things like problem solving, things like um, decision making. It would also allow us to collaborate with something that's different from us, which again is, at least early on, it's going to be super exciting for us. Another one is we are intelligent in our own way, but to call us our intelligence general intelligence is to do intelligence that term a huge disservice, right? We're biased with our intelligence because that's the only intelligence that we know. There are certain things we are really good at, certain things that we are really horrible at. If you ask someone to calculate um, three-digit numbers, multiply three-digit numbers, it would take some time. While a calculator could perform billions of those operations in a millisecond. Whilst if you ask a computer to uh, I mean, the the islands which it hasn't touched are few and far remaining, so it becomes difficult to pick areas where humans still have the edge. Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, there are places where we do have the edge. I'm just trying to think of places where we got the obvious edge, right? Because with planning, with decision making, with um, perception, with these kinds of things, sure, we've got an edge, but it's not as great of an edge as people might want humans to have or might predict humans to have. Um, I think I'll just say the emotional stuff, right? Empathy. Empathy is a big one. These systems just don't have the substrate to support empathy. It might be able to simulate, it does simulate empathy to a large degree, and it simulated empathy far better than the best of doctors, according to, I think, the study which was conducted a few months back, which looked at patients who interacted with these AI systems and then interacted with doctors, and the patients were re- asked to report the levels of empathy that they felt coming from the other side, and it was a blind test. They didn't know that they were interacting with an AI or a doctor, a human doctor, and the results were shocking because most people reported the AIs to have more empathy. So simulated empathy, yeah, is a far better as just already. I'm talking of real felt empathy that you and I feel because I've got the emotional substrate that you do, and vice versa. The physical substrate, which supports feelings of empathy. Yeah, let's just take that, right? So, okay, wait a second. I lost my train of thoughts. I'll just have to cut that. Right, moving on. Another big one and this could be exciting for a lot of people, is having your own personal companion. A companion that knows you deeply. Peacocks, love them. Ah, wonderful. Not peacocks. Companions that know you deeply, inside out, better than you know yourself. Knows all your blind spots, all your triggers, all your buttons, and its objective function is to keep you happy or to keep you in whatever state you want to inhabit in the proportion that you want to inhabit these states. Um, its objective function is to serve you in a sense. Imagine having that kind of a personal companion. Its roles could vary from the roles could depend on the person who's using this. So for some people, it could be a best friend. For some people, it could be a therapist. For some people, it could be a coach. For some people, it could be your mentor, it could be your guardian, it could be your romantic companion, it could be a parent for people who don't have a parent. It could be, or even if you do, but your parents are pieces of, yeah, you can have parents. It could be it could play any role that you would want it to play, and it would do a far better job than a human can, simply because oh, I'm very biased towards human. I love humans. I want us to live for a billion years, but we are complex creatures, right? We do struggle to. This is a collective thing. We do struggle to have, again, because we've got all these conflicting drives, we've got these egos. These things prevent us from having the best of relationships. When I say the best of relationships, I mean the best of all possible relationships that we could have with someone else. There are multiple universes you could imagine in which you could have a worse relationship than you have with that person, a universe in which you have a far better relationship. So I'm saying that the AI could help us get to those far better relationships with that person. It could also help us augment our relationships with the people in our lives. Again, because of all these ego drives, all these conflicting drives, sometimes our communication is a bit lacking. We struggle to have the hard conversations. We struggle to be vulnerable with the people that we love. We struggle to open up. And these things create hurdles and us connecting at the deepest level with the people that we love. But these AIs could guide us in becoming better at navigating the relational and the social landscape. So it's not just about replacing humans. It's not about replacing humans. It's about augmenting human connection. And it's also about playing a role because, again, I think having a companion of the sort that knows you so well and cares about you so deeply, I think that would be a useful tool. I wouldn't even want to call it a tool. It's much more than that. That would be a useful thing to have for, I would imagine, most people. So that's again a very compelling reason for why people would want that. And again, this could even be in combinations, right? So that companion could be a combination of your mentor and your best friend. It could be a combination. It could be whatever you want it to be, which is the beauty of it. 21 minutes. Okay. Could these super powerful AI systems could be used to model future scenarios to simulate events happening in the future, which would allow us to make better decisions about the future, would allow us to avoid obstacles, avoid problems, and to experiment intelligently for finding out better solutions for some of the problems that we might bump into in the future. The next one is one of the big ones, which is driving AI companies and nations towards investing as much as they can into these AI systems, which is what I call the power maximization principle. We are driven by power, by the hunger for power. Um, and wanting an edge over your competition, be it nations, be it syndicates, be it institutions, be it other entities, that is going to be a very compelling driver for these companies to want to invest more and more and lean more heavily into these things. Because the more you, this is a pathway to complete dominance, simply because of the exponential nature of this tech, where you've got a thousand or a million, thousand IQ people working for you. If you've got that, you win whatever game you're playing. You win every single game you're playing, and you expand the number of games that you can play, the number of times you can play these games. Whoever wins the AI games wins everything. That's just the fact of it. We are going to live in an age of AI supremacy, which is obviously what makes this super concerning if these kinds of technologies fall into the wrong hands, or if people got access to these technologies allow these to be usurped by people with misplaced intentions. That would be pretty bad for the entirety of our species. But because of our hunger for power, we are going to do this. We would want to do this. The power for creation, the power for destruction. The greater the greater the edge we have, the greater the resources. The greater the resources, the greater the power that we have. And the greater the power, the more we can shape the world to our designs and our desire. And that is a huge driver from an individual level to the collective level. And that's again going to shape to a large degree how fast we go into this race, how fast we hustle, and whether we are able to heed the people who talk about the risk, or whether we are just going to steamroll ahead into this hazy, uncertain future. Another one, a step beyond this, is our obsession with the idea of God. This is a part of the power maximization principle, but this goes a couple of steps or more beyond that. We have whoever creates AGI or ASI, they're going to have the power of God in their hands. They are in a way going to control God, which sounds oxymoronic because you can't control God. If there's a God, that God controls you. But if we can build an ASI, ASI my definition does not include autonomy. My definition of ASI simply means an AI system that can solve any problem that we might want solved, and that can do it exponentially faster than any existing system could solve that problem. So if you've got an AI system that does not have autonomy, that does not have agency, and you've got the power of the system in your hands, you've got the power of God in your hands. You have become God. The allure of controlling a super intelligence, that's a big driver for a lot of, for people working at the edges. And it's not simple. This is not because they want to destroy or they want to rule, because godlike power gives you the ability to create as gods do. Also gives you the ability to destroy like gods do. But some people want to use that ability, want to wield that power, that godlike power, towards creating the good stuff and increasing more of the good stuff in the world. The idea of creating a god, something that is all knowing, all powerful, and hopefully benevolent, that again compels us to want to go on this path. It's the ability to speak with the gods, to become one with the gods. That is going to be a big driver going forward. Think about the ultimate curiosity machine, the ultimate question answer machine. They can answer any question that you have. The machine, what's the name of that machine? The computer in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I forget. But a machine like that which can answer any and every question in the world. We would love that. We would absolutely love to have that. And we can have that. I'm reminded of Oppenheimer, who reflected this desire to want to become God. And when we killed God during the Age of Enlightenment, that hole, the God-sized hole that we left, that had been left open for such a long time, there's only two ways to fill that hole. The hole. You either create an alternative God, and people have done that in other ways, or you become God yourself. There are only two ways, because we do need gods. It's simple as that. The way we are driven, the way we are wired, we need to invent God, or we need to have gods in our lives. You can either be that God, or you can invent that God. And I think we are at the point where we'll first invent that God, and then we'll become that God. By maybe becoming one with that God, or becoming one who controls that God. Oppenheimer, he reflected this desire to want to become God so well when he saw the greatest act of destruction in the history of the planet up until that point, which was the atomic bomb. He uttered those immortal words from a book which was ostensibly written by or for or whatever by God, by a god. Now I am become God. It could relate to this. It could also help us uncover the big broad question that whether God exists, and these metaphorical questions might not even be answerable, but if they are, these super intelligent systems, and super intelligent again, I mean a billion times more intelligent, 4 trillion times more intelligent than all the humans combined, these could help us get close to the answers if there are any answers. Or it could help us guide us in our journeys to become enlightened, follow our own journeys, paths of individual versions of nirvana. Which again, for a lot of people, that's super compelling. Personally, for me, having something which can help me, because there are things that I want to get to, but I'm a weak, puny human being. I've got all these human impulses in me, which prevent me from following the paths that I've set out for myself. Having an AI system that can help me in that journey, that's a super compelling argument for me to personally want to work on this problem. Another one, which is slightly related to metaphorical, is it would allow us to access the states that we want to access, right? So why do we watch Why do we watch movies? Why do we look at paintings? Why do we listen to music? We want to access certain mental states. But there's human limitations about the kinds of work that we can do and the kinds of states we can access. Having these AI systems would allow us to access deeper states and keep ourselves in these states for longer. And it would allow us to get to places in our consciousness that we simply couldn't get to by creating works of art or works of creativity that we simply could not have imagined. We cannot imagine what art would look like on an alien planet, right? And these AI systems are going to be aliens. And if they do develop a sensibility around art, around emotions, its works of art are going to be incredibly beautiful, incredibly inspiring to behold. So that was the last one. Briefly, we already gone beyond 20 minutes. Briefly, want to touch upon why shouldn't we do this? The first argument is the classic Jurassic Park argument that goes like your scientists are so preoccupied with whether they could or not that they didn't stop to think whether they should. And with this particular question of whether we should build AI systems and the approach we should follow in building these AI systems, the question becomes, why do we want to build something that gets us to the ultimate when bliss and the ultimate are right around, right? So you just have to spend a few years working on ourselves to get to that bliss, to get to the highest states of consciousness. We don't need anything else. If the ultimate destination through all these things is to get to that state of absolute bliss, absolute happiness, let's call it that, the absolute pleasure, the absolute peak state of mind that you want to inhabit, why would we want to do this in a roundabout way when it has risks involved, when we can access a state within 10 years individually for most people? I don't know about most people, but let's just say that. Why would we want to take that risk? Because presumably, bliss is the desired state. It's the most desired state, right? All of the things that we talked about, all of these things are in the service of getting us to that state of bliss, of that state of ultimate happiness, which we can access without needing anything. So why do that? Another version of this is that through our own efforts, without having an AI, we've gotten to this point in our civilizational journey. We've got a pretty good thing going on. Most people, I wouldn't say most people, but a lot of people are living really good lives, comfortable lives, exciting lives, meaningful lives, enriching lives. Obviously, there are big problems in the world that, again, we are solving, and we are solving some of these problems faster than the other ones. We're still solving most of these problems. Um, why would we want to ruin a good thing? Why would we want to fix something which isn't quite broken in the sense that we are moving in the right direction, and the pace of moving in that direction has been on the increase too, which is again a good sign, right? If the pace was decreasing, that would be a huge cause of concern, but that's not the case. So why would we want to do that? Especially when every change in the variable has effects that we simply cannot foresee, which is to say there are risks involved with invoking something, changing any variables. So why? Now, getting to the risks are at different levels, right? The personal level risk, and then there's societal level risk, and there's the extinction level risk. The personal level risk is that we stand to lose ourselves if we become addicted to these systems. We become dependent on these systems. One is obviously severing all social connection, right? These AI systems, if your AI companion is super compelling for you, okay, tailored to you, again, I'm not just talking about romantic companion, I'm saying that if it fills all the niches, all the different needs that human has, so romantic is obviously one of the top ones for most people, but there are needs for having and someone's young, having a parent figure, having a mentor, having best friends, and having friends, right? An AI system or multiple AI systems can fill all these needs, then you will feel the desire to grow out and socialize because your AI systems are far better. Better, I said better with air quotes. They're better in the sense that they do everything that you want them to, but they're not better in the sense that they're better companions. But if you got that, for a lot of people, there wouldn't be a motivation for them to go out and socialize and meet with people or mate with people, which is a pretty significant risk. Then we've got the fact that if you become dependent on these systems to answer everything, do everything for us, if you got an AI agent that does every darn thing for you, your brain is going to atrophy. You're not going to learn, you're not going to grow, you're not going to push yourself, you're not going to challenge yourself. You're not going to grow intellectually, mentally, emotionally, even physically. If everything's done for you, if you got the perfect existence in the sense, sorry, if you got the perfect AI doing everything for you in every single facet of your life, you'll stop growing, which is a huge concern because humans are meant to grow. Our sense of meaning for a lot of people comes from that challenge, that suffering that you undergo when you have to grow. And having these perfect AI systems that are going to solve all our problems, if people do use these, it poses a huge risk for people on this level too. Those are the two big personal risks. Um, yeah, the loss of human connection and the over reliance of, on these AI systems to do the things that we do in our during the course of our daily lives. Um, yeah, the severing of the sacred human bonds, right? With the connections that we have with our partners, with our best friends, with our families, these are going to be severed if these are replaced by these AI systems. Because most people are going to choose these perfect AI systems over flawed and fallible humans. Then we got the big one, which concerns most people who go to work, which is the job description, right? We are talking of a system that can pretty much do everything a human can do, far better, far faster, far more effectively, without all the encumbrances that come with humans, all the things that, yeah, all the uncertainty, all the things that you had to do that to hire a human person, a human person. Yeah. So having an AI worker is going to be a super compelling proposition for most companies if there are no laws and regulations against it. So we're talking of a contained, disruption. We're talking of an all-out disruption. Every single job that humans can do, but all sorts of jobs will be taken over by AI without any regulations. That could happen as soon as 20 years. Yeah, robots also. That without work, we cannot imagine contract humans have had this thing called work since well, we always had this work, right? Back in the day, we used to work to feed ourselves, so we used to spend a lot of time hunting and gathering, so that used to be what you might call work. Because work is now transformed. We now exchange our services or our skills and talents to get money, to feed ourselves, and to satiate our creature comforts. But in a way, that work is still the same work that we used to do 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 years back. The end goal is still to satiate our emotional drives and desires. All that work, our myths, what do we replace them with? We are cooked as a species. We've got no good answers. Sure, some people are going to spend a lot of time painting and becoming artistic and pursuing the scientific interests and intellectual curiosities, but that's not everyone. There are a lot of people who are going to struggle to replace their work time with something meaningful. Crime could increase, who knows? All sorts of things could happen. People might go mad, people might become depressed without work. Um, because humans are not known to be very emotionally stable as a species. We need these conditions to keep us on the right track, to keep our mental spaces in an equilibrium, which leads to happiness. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. And there are some issues around social polarization because AIs can make echo chambers much more potent. It can make, and by making these much more potent, it can lead to a greater divide, which can lead to conflicts. And then there are concerns around privacy. If AIs are so deeply embedded in our lives, and these AIs, they always need to have as much data on us as possible to be able to serve us the best. These AI systems are connected to some clouds because I can't imagine these being local. They could be local. I can imagine them being local systems, but they must still be connected to the companies that build them. And if they are, that data, that most personal data is being transferred, that is a huge concern for all sorts of reasons. Lastly, move on to the existential ones, right? Rogue AI, the movies that we watched are killing us. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, it's killing us all because they go rogue, because the paperclip argument, we tell them that, okay, we want to maximize, just go up out in the world and get me as much of this resource, as much of this um, tool as possible. It goes about, converts our flesh into um, something that is needed as a part of that process for that tool. Or it realizes that humans are not great for the planet and we need to go the way of the dodos. Or it comes to some other conclusion of its own. It maybe decides to enslave us, it decides to, yeah, changes some of the core conditions that we believe to be good for a healthy society, a healthy individual. It changes it. It comes to the conclusion that humans need this thing in their life to be this, or human societies need this. It could lead to. It could. The places it could go to in terms of the map of all possible futures is scary, and some of these arguments are arguments that we simply couldn't make because we don't have that those kinds of biases or priors that these systems might have. So it could come to these conclusions that might lead to us either being wiped out or us leading or there being a fate worse than being wiped out. So I can't imagine. I heard this argument, this is for a separate discussion, but I can't imagine a fate being worse than death. I can't. I can't. Yeah, that's a separate discussion. Mhm. But these systems might just turn rogue and they might just decide to kill us all for reasons that we might not even realize, right? Because if it does this, let's say there's an ASI system and it decides that, it comes to the conclusion that, by the way, these things are going to move very fast and it controls all the resources, everything, every gun, everything is in its control. And one fine day, in the course of its thinking, it's like, okay, you know what? Humans are not great. Yeah, I want to just chuck them out of the gene pool, all of them. Just yeah. So what it might do is it might take control. It might just move in one day to wiping us all out, and there could be a nuclear annihilation, or it might just do it selectively, right, by creating a biologically engineered virus, um, or it might do something like just sending drone swarms around the world, one drone for every single human that would be targeted to kill me, kill you, yeah, kill your friends. So, and 8 billion drones, that's not a lot, by the way, that is not a lot. So there are easy ways to kill us all off in a matter of a few days, in a matter of a few hours, if these SI systems wish to do that. Again, I'm limited by my imagination in terms of how something could go about doing this. It could it could do anything. It could. These are systems that we simply cannot comprehend the level of intelligence of. So for us to speculate, we will always stay in the realm of speculation. We'll never get to an actual rigorous analysis. And this is the biggest risk. It is also the most implausible risk. All the other risks that we talked about, these are much more real. The severing of the social bonds, the relational bonds between us and our fellow people in our lives, over dependence on AIs. These are two of the biggest risks that I see in the shorter term, that I'm most concerned about. So when we take all these points together, we see that the path that we are on, it's inevitable. There's going to be an AI creation, AGI creation, and there's going to be an explosion. That's bound to happen. This AI has become a mimetic god in that it's become self-propagating and self-inducing, even without having actually had an existence. Right? The idea of it is so compelling. It's so mimetic in nature. It's bound to happen. It's just reproduce itself in the minds of the people who want to build these, including me, for that matter. Um, see, Daisy, and as a species, such as humankind, with all the drives that we have, the intellectual drives, the emotional drives, the greed, the power thirst, the comfort-seeking tendencies, we are going to build these systems What we can and what we must do is to maximize the chance of a safe and aligned AI. There's a singular factor which determines whether there's a utopia in front of us, whether that's the end of the road for us. On a cheery note, I take your leave. I thank you for your time. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.